Welcome to the National Button Society's Capturing the Magic of Buttons series of button craft tutorials. This tutorial features 3 ideas for button-enhanced wall art. The National Button Society provides this series of tutorials in response to its members' increased interest in using their uncollectible buttons in artistic ways. This series of no-harm button crafts and the other button craft ideas on the National Button Society website support its mission to preserve all that is beautiful and historic in buttons. Access to this series is a membership benefit, along with quarterly bulletins and online button education resources. You can see more about what membership offers you online at nationalbuttonsociety.org. Making button-enhanced wall art is a quick and attractive way to display your themed or uncollectible buttons. Young button collectors will find it easy to do as well. The canvas art prints used in this tutorial were bought for just $1 from a Dollar Tree store. They measure approximately 8-inch square and already have a hanging device on the back. Steps for how each canvas was decorated will be covered in varying detail in this tutorial. It is unlikely you will find the same wall art that is being used in this tutorial, so the ideas presented are meant to stimulate your creativity. Let's start with the abstract and then talk about the still life and rustic house. For the abstract design, you will need wall art, pencil, measuring tape or ruler, buttons, X-Acto knife, awl or skewer, coated wire or hot glue gun, scissors, and ribbon. The paint strokes and colors on this canvas inspired a bouquet of buttons. We will start by looking for a button or two to represent a vase. They can be oblong, rectangle, square, or round. The yellowish oblong button that was chosen resembles a vase base, and the beige button was added to balance it. Use your tape measure or ruler to find the center of your canvas along the bottom and put a pencil dot to mark it. Stack your vase buttons at the middle mark and make a mark under the center of the top button. This spot is where you will anchor your ribbons that act as stems. Use your measuring tape to measure a diagonal line from that pencil mark that you made under the top vase button. Use that measurement to cut 5 lengths of ribbon to use as stems. Ours measured about 5 inches. Fan the ribbons out from the pencil mark on your canvas. Use your hot glue gun to affix the ribbons at that point. Sew or glue the 2 buttons to the canvas, putting the top button over the ends of the ribbon. With so many colorful buttons to choose from, it didn't take long to pick out some favorites. However, with the goal in mind of using uncollectible buttons for the project, 2 buttons stood out. They both looked like they could be Bakelite. Although the buttons in this tutorial will be sewn on in extreme no-harm caution, many of you may choose to glue the buttons on instead. Bakelite buttons are very collectible and should never be glued, so 2 replacement buttons were found. It is important to always think twice about any buttons you intend to use for a craft. Arrange your buttons in a pretty and balanced design. Space the colors apart so all the reds or yellows, etc. aren't too close to each other. When the layout is the way you like it, take a photo so you can refer back to it when your buttons are taken off the canvas. The next step is to mark the location of each button in order to make a hole to mount the button in. A mechanical lead pencil works well for sew-through buttons because the lead can be made long enough to go through the hole and onto the canvas. For shanked buttons, slide the button over a bit or lift it up to mark where the hole is to go. Take each button off the canvas after the location is marked. And if you don't have a camera like I mentioned in the previous step, put a number under each button before you lift it off the canvas. Duplicate the numbers on a sheet of paper and place each button under its corresponding number. When it's time to mount the buttons on the canvas, you just have to match the numbers. Use an awl to make 2 holes in the canvas for sew-through buttons. If the button has a shank, you might need to use an X-Acto knife to make small slices into the canvas to make sure the hole is wide enough for the shank to go all the way through to the back. The preferred material to use to mount buttons is coated wire. You can find category 6 wire, also known as Cat 6 wire, at home improvement stores. Thread about 2.5 inches of the coated wire through the button and double it as shown. Next, for sew-through buttons, push the 2 ends of the wire through the canvas. For shank buttons, push the shank and the wire all the way through to the back. To secure the button tightly, wrap the wire in a circle close to the canvas surface on the back side. This will help keep the button tight on the front side. When your buttons are all wired in place, you can trim the lengths of the stem ribbons. The vase was finished by wrapping ribbon around the 2 bottom buttons. This is optional, of course. And it's done! Our next canvas project is a still life with a couple of vases full of flowers. Here is a list of items you'll need to complete it. Wall art, buttons, measuring tape, needle, thread, scissors or hot glue gun, and ribbon. The colors of the flowers on this canvas have some hints of purple and violet, so we first chose a variety of buttons in that color scheme. But in the end, we decided the shell and mother of pearl buttons were what we would go with. 3/4 inch white shell buttons were chosen for the center bouquet, and more colorful and smaller 1/2 inch buttons were picked for the bouquet on the right. There was no need to mark the positions of the buttons before sewing, because we used the flower blossoms as guides to where to place the buttons. These buttons were sewn on, which took very little time and did no harm to the buttons. To finish, we decided to add a strip of purple ribbon along the bottom. After hot gluing the ribbon in place, we used a measuring tape to find the middle of the canvas. Going back to our collection of shell buttons, we picked out 9 more 3/4 inch buttons. We sewed the first button at the middle mark and then the 8 other buttons, which fit nicely in the space. The still life wall art is complete and ready to hang or give as a gift. The last of our wall art pieces is a rustic house. For this project, we chose a variety of wood buttons to create a border. We randomly placed the diverse brown tone buttons on the canvas and wired them to the back the same way we did in the first project. Now we get to see our pretty wood buttons on display rather than hidden away, and no harm was done to these collectible wood buttons. We hope you enjoyed the National Button Society's Button Enhanced Wall Art tutorial, and that it inspired you to display some of your favorites to add to your enjoyment of collecting buttons. For more button craft ideas, button education, and information on state button societies and local clubs, visit nationalbuttonsociety.org. Also look for us on Facebook. We're planning fun contests and opportunities for members to share button craft creations. You can also share your creations or ideas with us via email at creative@nationalbuttonsociety.org. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye now.